Before we took a break, we were discussing about what should be the type of valve or the valve gain. So here we can clearly see that the valve gain is showing a linear characteristic. That means we need to use a linear we need to use an equal percentage valve to compensate for the process gain or the change of process gain with the load, such that we can maintain the overall gain of the control loop to 0.5. So the first control scheme, feedback temperature control scheme for the process cooler. Here in every control scheme that we discuss, you are expected to write what is the control variable and what is the manipulated variable for that control scheme. You all are aware of what are these concepts, controlled variable and manipulated variables. Still, I will just brush it up. Controlled variable will be the variable that will be changed or that needs to be changed depending on the set point. To maintain the particular set point, we are going to maintain a set point for this controlled variable. Manipulated variable will be the variable that we manipulate or change such that the controlled variable is maintained at its set point. So you have controlled variable and you have manipulated variable. You have one more variable which is the measured variable. Here in this case, the measured variable and the control variable are same. That is the exit temperature TH2. So the control is done by throttling the coolant inlet flow. Here we can specifically see that we are specifying what type of valve it is. That is an equal percentage valve. One more thing that you can see that is written here. Here when we are saying it is failed to open, it means that in case of loss of signal or loss of the pneumatic supply, in that situation, your control valve will remain completely open. If it was written FC over there, then it would mean fail to close. That means when the supply fails, the valve will completely shut off. The valve will completely close. Okay, now how is it related here in our situation? Let's see for our control action how it can be seen or be useful, or why is it specifically mentioned here that it should be a fail to open valve. Now in this process, if you observe, what are we doing? We are basically having a process cooler. That means the coolant is flowing through the tubes, the process liquid is flowing through the shell and is exiting. Now the temperature of the process fluid needs to be reduced. Okay, hence I have to maintain it at say a temperature TH2. Now this particular control valve is the valve of the coolant. In case of any supply failure for this particular pneumatic control valve, what will happen? Since it is a fail to open valve, the valve will remain continuously open or fully open, thus letting the coolant pass through the heat exchanger. Now when the coolant is passing through the heat exchanger, it is continuously cooling the process fluid, irrespective of the process fluid being present or not. The cooling will still keep on occurring. Now, in case if I would have a fail to close valve here rather than a fail to open, in that situation what would happen? In case of the pneumatic supply failure, my valve would close. If my valve closed, there is no coolant flowing into the heat exchanger. Then automatically my temperature TH2 will go on rising, or it will be same as TH1 after some time, which is not desired. which is not desired. So, to avoid such a situation and to avoid any overheating or any excessive damage to the heat exchanger, whenever there is a cooling action, the valve will always be failed to open. And whenever there is any heating action or some hot fluid, for example, it would be hot liquid or it would be steam, this valve would always be failed to close. Feedback temperature control of process heater. Now I want you all to tell me, or maybe just write it in your notebook, what is the manipulated variable here and what is the controlled variable here. If you have a doubt, ask me. What is the manipulated variable and what is the controlled variable here? We can just name this as this is TC2, this is TC1, this is TH1, and this is TH2. By the way, all of these diagrams are directly from process control for LITTAC, and I'm referring it from the standard book itself. So I hope all of you are clear with what is the manipulated variable and what is the controlled variable here. If anyone has a query, please unmute your mic and ask. Please unmute your mic and ask. Also, if you observe, this valve is failed to close because now we are dealing with a hot fluid, or basically we are heating it. So, from the safety point of view, as Smith mentioned, that if the signal fails to this control valve, what will happen is, since it is failed to close, it will stop the heating media flowing through the heat exchanger and thus maintaining the temperature TC2 at a particular level. But if in case what happens is that this would be a fail to open valve, then the heating media would continuously be flowing through it, irrespective there is the process fluid flowing through the heat exchanger or not, and then there would be a possibility of overheating of the process fluid, which then is usually not desirable. So this is feedback temperature control of a process heater. The manipulated variable here would be the flow rate at the exit of the heating media, or the flow of the exit media. And what is the control variable? The control variable is TC2, or the temperature of the exit of the process fluid. Now, what happens is that in feedback control, yes, feedback is achieved in a proper way. But if you all recollect, in the starting itself, I had mentioned that there is a dead time for any heat exchanger. We have seen how huge a heat exchanger could be. Now, if I want a change, and as it is, temperature is a slow moving variable. I hope you all are aware of slow moving variable and fast moving variables. Temperature is a slow moving variable, flow is a fast moving variable, because it takes time for any temperature to change from one level to another, whereas flow can be changed quickly comparatively. What happens is, if in case the temperature at this particular point TC1 changes, because of that automatically TC2 will be affected if this flow is at the same rate. So the moment there is a change in TC2, there will be a signal coming here. The error will change. Hence, the valve opening will change. Now, this whole time that is taken from the point that TC1 changes, then it passes through the heat exchanger, it is detected at TC2, then the controller will take a control action, then the steam or whatever hot fluid is there, its flow is reduced so that there could be the temperature could be achieved inside the heat exchanger, and eventually by the time it is reflected in TC2, there is a huge time lag that occurs. To avoid this time lag or to overcome this time lag, we can't avoid it completely, but to overcome this time lag, what can be done is we can implement something called as bypass control. Now bypass control, a simple example that I could give you is, in case you are having uh, or you wish to have a glass of hot water. Okay, you want hot water to drink it just to soothe your throat or something, and you keep a vessel, you boil the water. Now the water is too hot to be drank directly. So what you do, you have two things that you can do to reduce the temperature of that water. You either keep it in open air or you keep it in another cold liquid for some time. Okay, another option is that I mix a little bit of cold water with it. The moment I mix a little bit of cold water with it, what will happen is the temperature of that hot water will reduce. And maybe it is possible that I can drink it immediately. So it's similar to the control action. The first two options, that means I either put it in the open air and let it cool on its own, or I keep it in another cold liquid. This all is simple feedback control. Another option was I add some cold water to it and I make the water bearable enough to be drank directly. The, sec the second option that is there is nothing but bypass control. So what will happen? I will be able to reduce the temperature of that water quickly for consumption. This is nothing but bypass control in simple words. How do we achieve it? Let us see. So the process time lag is too great. What is done is we use a diverter valve. There are two types in which bypass control can be achieved. One is by using a diverter valve as a three-way valve or a mixing valve as a three-way valve. The example that I gave you can be for mixing valve. Okay. Now if you observe in this, what all is there? Here we have a three-way valve. This three-way valve, if you observe, is having an arrow in this direction. That means the normal operation is in this direction. When it has to divert the liquid, that time it will allow the liquid to go into this particular path. It will allow to go in this particular path. Abhishek, the voice is clear and the screen is clear to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this three-way valve is being used either as a diverter valve in this particular situation, or it could be used as a mixing valve as in this situation. So let's see how it works actually. So now we have temperature TH1, TC1, TC2, TH2. We are controlling temperature TH2 by measuring TH2 and manipulating the flow of the inlet of the process fluid. There is no control on the coolant flow going through the heat exchanger. Now this is an example of a process cooler wherein we are cooling the particular process fluid. So what we are doing is, now this is temperature TH1. Everything is going on fine. TH2 is being maintained at its set point. Suppose by any reason this temperature TH2 drops below the set point. Since there is no control over the cold fluid, what option I have? One option is I start opening this control valve. The moment I open it more, there will be more liquid flowing through at a higher flow rate, and again TH2 will come back to its set point. But if I want to achieve this quicker, what I do is I will now divert some of this hot fluid into my exit line. So automatically my TH2 comes back to its set point. And when not required, I could simply cut it off and it could flow normally through the heat exchanger. So I'm diverting the fluid and I'm adding it to the exit line. So here are some advantages and disadvantages of using it. But we'll directly go to the mixing valve example. Now in this situation, what is happening? I have placed the three-way valve at the outlet, and the flow, when it is in normal control situation, the flow is flowing normally in this direction as the arrow shows. Now, if this temperature here at this point is increased, decreased, I'm considering the same process cooler, then I will add some, or I will open the valve in this direction, passing some hot fluid from the entry to the exit directly, thus maintaining this temperature. Any queries with diverting and mixing valve, please ask. I will explain it again if you are having any kind of confusion. Just depending on the placement of the three-way valve, it will either be a mixing valve or a diverting valve. Otherwise, the operation or how it is going to work will remain more or less the same. If I am considering this as TH2, if TH2 drops below the set point, I directly mix some hot fluid from the inlet into the exit line of the process fluid, thus maintaining TH2. Are you putting any queries in the chat box? Then I'll check the chat box.
Yes, ma'am. There's a query.
Okay, I'll just check the chat box. If temperature increases above the set point, then will flow of coolant increase. Since there was no uh, since there was no control on the temperature of or the flow of the coolant flow is going to remain constant. So I cannot change the coolant flow. Then what do I do? So mixing or diverting is an option. Any other query? No? Varun, are you okay with the answer or you need some more explanation? Okay. So let's get back to our diagram. Now this is mixing valve, this was diverting valve, and the next is due to some limitations of the three-way valves. You want to just go through the advantages of the bypass control, increase system speed of response, cost savings, improve dynamic response, heat transfer coefficient is high enough, and eliminates fouling inside the heat exchanger. But there are disadvantages too, such as increased pumping cost and lower temperature differences between supply and return liquids. And due to these limitations, here which they are listed, operation becomes unstable because of the bathtub effect. Bathtub effect is nothing but when your liquid just gushes back and floods the valve, is the bathtub effect. Then what type of service it can be used for? It is not recommended for temperatures above 500 degrees Fahrenheit or at differential temperatures exceeding 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Three-way valves are unbalanced, which is a limitation. They have linear ports, and misalignment or distortion in a three-way control valve will cause leakage, or it will cause a dead band between, or packing friction will be there. So these are some of the limitations of the three-way control valve, because of which we have to go for another options of bypass control. So what are the another options for bypass control? First is, since the bypass control or the three-way valve is not balanced, we could have a hand control valve introduced in that line, in the bypass line here. The hand control valve will be placed at a differential pressure of 9 psi, same, here it is an example of 9 psi, but it will be placed at the same differential pressure as the differential pressure inside the heat exchanger. Thus, it balances the pressure drop of the particular bypass line and the bypass valve. This is one option by which you can use a bypass valve or a three-way valve, or another option is you use two-way valves. And the two-way valves, one is a fail to open and the other is a fail to close. Now, how will this operate? Let's see if this temperature TH2 drops. I need liquid or I need fluid from the inlet to be mixed to the outlet. Now, this temperature controller which is there, it gives the signal to both. It gives signal to the fail to control valve as well as it gives signal to the fail to open valve. Now, what happens is, obviously, when this TH2 temperature drops, there will be a necessity of increasing the temperature. That means I will have to reduce the flow of liquid passing through the heat exchanger, as well as I will have some liquid to be mixed into my outlet line. So automatically the same signal that is coming from here will act differently to both the control valves. The first control valve, which is failed to open, will start closing or will start reducing its opening, whereas the fail to close valve will start increasing its opening and allowing some liquid to pass into the bypass line. So this way I can use two-way valves to achieve the action of a single three-way valve. And this will not give you the limitations of the three-way valve also. This is one of the favorite questions, how bypass control is achieved in heat exchangers. So you will be explaining mixing and diverting valve in short. You will draw up the diagrams for the two, and then for the limitations you will be providing these two solutions also. So the answer becomes pretty big when you are writing it for bypass control, that how you are using the diverting valve and the mixing valve, and then how you are achieving the balance or how you are overcoming the limitations of any of the ones which are there for the three-way valve. That is either by balancing it using a hand control valve in the bypass line or using two-way valves for achieving the operation of a three-way valve. So to summarize, bypass control is applied to circumvent the dynamic characteristics of heat exchangers, thus improving their controllability. Bypass control can be achieved by the use of either one three-way valve or two-way valves. Just a comparison of using one three-way valve, two single-seated two-way valves, and two double-ported two-way valves. So the next we are going to see is steam heaters. So in a steam heater, you all have to take care of the time constant, dead time, residence time, period of oscillations, and the process gain, which will vary with the flow. The normal feedback control here, if you observe, the difference will be that we are now going to throttle the inlet of the steam. See, this is the inlet. We are throttling the inlet of the steam itself. And we are using a fail to close valve for safety purpose. Otherwise, the operation would remain the same for any feedback control. So, bypass control for steam heaters. Now, in this particular situation, it is going to act the same. Bypass control, you have failed to open, but if you see the direction here, in the previous one, the direction was, this one was the open direction. Now, since it is a heater, your bypass direction or the normal direction is this. If required, then the flow flows through the heat exchanger, or there will be a minimal flow flowing through the heat exchanger depending on the requirement. In this situation, we are using steam. So it is important that I also have a pressure control loop which is going to act and maintain the pressure inside the heat exchanger. So your main control loop is your temperature control, number one. And the second one, which is the pressure control loop, is used specifically for making sure that the temperature inside the heat exchanger does not exceed beyond the safety limits. Because we are working with high pressure and high temperature steam in this situation. Lastly, feedback control. Now all of you are aware what is feed forward control. Up till now, what we were doing is we were measuring the signal and providing a feedback to the controller to take the control action. Whereas in this case, feed forward control, we will be modeling the heat exchanger. That means what we are doing is we are developing a control model or a mathematical model for a heat exchanger. In that model, I am passing the values of flow and temperature of the liquid stream that is entering into the heat exchanger. Now, depending on the values of these two, because when these two vary, automatically this T out temperature would also be affected. So what we are doing is we are checking what are the disturbances. The disturbances are flow and temperature of the inlet stream. And in this feed forward controller, the model is calculating what would be the effect of change in this flow and temperature on T out. And accordingly, an error signal is generated and provided to the control valve for steam. And before this disturbance affects T out, we try to reduce that and we try to eliminate the dead time within the heat exchanger also. That is the use of feed forward. But depending on the feed forward only is a little risky. The reason being that if the model or the heat exchanger is not accurate. It is not going to give you correct calculations and there will be errors in controlling T out. So for that, it is always preferable that you combine feed forward and feedback together. So if you just try to compare liquid flow, feed forward and feedback signals, you can see that the feed forward gives you very good control as compared to feedback. But that one small condition, that your model should be perfectly fine. So in such situations, you always trim your feedback signal using your feed forward signal. That is what is done normally in any practical control situations. What happens exactly in feed forward control? In feed forward control, what we are doing is, instead of depending on measuring T out, okay, what is a normal feedback control? We measure T out, and after the control action will take place and your steam valve will either open or close depending on the value of T out. But in this system, why does this T out change in the first place? The T out changes because of some other disturbances. So what are those disturbances? We find out. In this case, the disturbances are the flow rate and the temperature of the entering fluid stream. Now, depending on these various values, I make a model of this particular system. I make actually a mathematical model of this system. Now, when I make a mathematical model, when I pass the values of f and t to it, it will generate some value for this T out. And I will compare this T out value with the desired set point. If there is an error, accordingly, the steam valve will change. Now, what benefit we are having with feed forward is that before the effects of FT flow and temperature of the inlet stream affect T out, I take an action and I make those changes a priori into the system. For example, let's take, if the flow of this particular example increases. The moment the flow increases, I am sure that now my T out will drop because flow and temperature are inversely proportional. For that reason, I will need to increase the steam flow such that more amount of heat exchange will take place. Now that will be decided by this feed forward controller. If my model is perfect, it will perfectly decide that yes, there needs to be a change or an increase in the steam flow, and accordingly immediately steam flow will increase. Before this change in flow is affecting my heat exchanger output T out, I have already taken the control action and hence I have reduced much of the effect of the change in flow. The same is shown in this diagram, that if in any chance my liquid flow increases, what happens is my feedback, my signal at the output, that is my temperature T out, drops. Now after that temperature drops, then my controller will take an action in the case of feedback. But whereas in feed forward, the feed forward controller had already estimated that okay, since there is an increase in the liquid flow, the temperature T out is going to drop, and before it should affect, I will increase my steam flow. And when the steam flow was increased, automatically the effect on the output T out was very minimal. That is the benefit of using feed forward control.